Hello, this is Tola from Trifo Productions with another Blender quick tip. And this quick tip is based upon a subscriber's request. His name is Filipe. And he says, do you have a tutorial on lights in Blender? Point, sun, spot, area. Needed to know more, thanks. Because I've done a tutorial on the 3-point light system add-on in Blender, but with this tutorial it's going to be it's going to be quick, but what it's going to be based on is how I use the lights in Blender to create scenes, that have meaning, that have expression. You don't want like flat lighting throughout your scenes. And I'm not talking about like 3-point lighting where you have the fill lights and the other forms of light that's supposed to compose an overall light system for a character. I'm talking about a lighting scene, pretty simple when it comes to outdoor lighting and indoor lighting, and also using the point lights to do different things specifically. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to open up this scene. I've created like 3 scenes here, one for interior lighting, one for exterior lighting, and another one for I use this one specifically for the cell phone lighting. Now when we go into cycles and you look at this scene, you see the cell phones there. Let's make it a little bit darker so we can get a better feel for what we're trying to obtain here, the goal we're trying to reach. But when we use our cell phones, the screens of our cell phones, they emit light, and with this you could cause this surface to be an emission surface, but I've tried that before and it doesn't really come out that well. The end result isn't that good. So what I do is I use a point light system, or a point light actually, to illuminate the surface of the cell phone. Now I have the cursor in the middle. I'm going to press Shift A on my keyboard and go to light and then go to point. I'm going to pull this up. You can already tell the difference here, how the cell phone looks animated because there's a light hovering above it. You can't really use a sunlight because that's too much. An area light, that's kind of heavy for such a small area of space to light up. And then when it comes to the spotlight, that really doesn't give the effect that you want in terms of an illuminated surface. So the point light will be the best thing to use. And we're going to turn this up a little bit. Excuse me. I'm trying to do this tutorial at night while my children are sleeping. So I'm watching the baby monitor as they sleep, but we'll get through this tutorial. My daughter just woke up, but hopefully she'll go back to sleep. We're going to turn the power up on this. Let's make this, 50. Type in 50, 50, enter. And it lights it up. And the way you can actually have this light actually interact better with the cell phone surface is you can actually change the color to match the colors, or the dominant colors on the cell phone. And we're going to click on the color parameter here, click on the eyedropper, and I'm going to click this pink color, and you can see that now it really looks like the cell phone is being activated and it's being used by whoever's holding it. Now one thing you want to keep in mind with this technique is that you don't want to have the surface reflective, and the reason being is that in Blender, for some reason, whenever you have a light emission or a source of emission on a reflected surface, it always shows reflected light inside or on top of the surface. I'm going to show you what I mean by turning up the specular of the surface of the cell phone. I'm going to split this window up. I'm going to go into shader editor. Excuse me. Let's click on, let me see, that surface. Let's go back to the rendered viewport cycles, and I'm going to crank up the specular so you can see what I'm talking about. Let me turn that up, and let me turn, that's good, specular's up. So when we've turned up the specular, you can see that the spotlight the illumination of it is being pinpointed in the middle or on top of the cell phone surface, which is not what we want. We just want the cell phone to appear animated by having a light emit from it without having to see the source of the light itself. So make sure that once you have this point light on top of any surface, make sure that the surface has no specular elements or specular attributes added to it at all. So turn down specular all the way down so you can get a desired result on the surface of the cell phone. Now that's how you can use the point lights specifically for illuminating a cell phone in Blender. Now we're going to go to, we're going to go to the exterior lighting. Let me close this up. Join areas. Turn off cell phone. Turn on the exterior lighting model. Now I've got this model from Make Human, the older version of Make Human. So I have her here. I'm going to turn my render viewport back to cycles. And now if you look at this model, it's just flat lighting. Just ignore all this stuff. It didn't import it properly, but that's not what we're trying to focus on. We're trying to focus on the lighting. Now in this scene, if we have a scene outside, you can use a sunlight to illuminate your scene, which is fine. But for the most part, a sunlight doesn't give you the little details like in the face, wrinkles, pores, things like that, or in the clothing. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let me put in the sunlight here. Shift A. And we're going to add a sun. We're going to drag this up and put this in front of her. We're going to turn this towards her. Let me see. R. Okay, there we go. Go back to 1. Now you can see that the sun does a pretty good job of providing shadows, but some of the shadows are kind of harsh. And what we want to do is that we want to provide some kind of, when we want people to look at a scene in a movie that we're doing or an animation that we're doing, we want to have that character or that scene speak to the viewers and speak to them in a way that even if there are no words at all in that scene, it still kind of speaks to them. And what helps with that is the lighting system in terms of the shadows. Now the sun has given us some lighting on her, but we want something that's more, I guess, detailed, and the spotlight does that. So we're going to delete the sun right now. Press delete on my keyboard. Right now we just have the atmosphere or the world lighting up the scene, and that's flat pretty much. But what we're going to do now is we're going to add a spotlight to this. So Shift A, spot, and it's at the bottom. 3 to rotate. Going to drag this, left click and drag on the y-axis, left click and drag on the z-axis. I'm going to rotate this on, just rotate it on the x-axis, so to speak. Drag it closer to her. I'm going to press 1 on our keyboard so you can see what it looks like close up. And we're going to increase the power of the spotlight so we can get a better view or better feel of what the spotlight does when in terms of casting shadows. I'm going to crank this up to 100. Excuse me. And there you can see that this scene, and if we make it darker, let's make the whole atmosphere darker. And this scene, even though she's smiling, this could be like something from a horror movie almost, because we have her upper body that has light on it, but the shadow starts from underneath her eyes, and the upper part of her forehead is also in shadow, and lower part is in shadow also. So if you make this whole scene dark, which let's do that, let's make it completely dark. You have something like this, and she had a very, kind of angry look on her face. For a thriller or a horror movie, this would tell a story. Okay, if we move the spotlight up higher on her face, And we kind of let's look at it from the the right side by pressing 3 on the keyboard and drag this up higher. Now we want the reflection to really be in our eyes. Press 1 again. Left click, hold down shift, middle mouse button, drag. You can see that her eyes are really lit up. I'm going to try and increase the speckle in her eyes because what I'm trying to portray here, I'm going to bring up the world light a little bit. We want to portray the light reflecting in her eyes. So if it's like a scene where, you know, she's outside or something, walking at night, you want, because a lot of the expression when it comes to lighting comes from the eyes. A lot of that really helps. So let me try to click on her. Hope this isn't freezing up. Okay. Let me go to the other viewport. Let me click on textures. See if I can find her eyes here. See. Eye blue. Okay. Let me split up my window. And I'm going to go to the shader editor. And I'm going to really crank up the specular and turn down the roughness. That way we can see the light on her eyes, because the eyes, once you'll see the difference when you see the reflection of the light in her eyes, that'll really make her eyes stand out and really tell a different story from what we had before. So I'm going to turn down the roughness. Okay. Let me drag it over, scroll up on my mouse wheel, and go back to that's what I'm talking about. You can see the specular, the light in her eyes right here, and that brings her eyes more to life. And that's what the spotlight does. It causes a soft shadow where the light is not, and then where the light is, there's more character in what's being reflected. You remember when we had the sunlight up, it was there lighting up our subject pretty well. Only thing is, it caused a lot of harsh shadows, really harsh shadows on our character, and with our spotlight it doesn't do that. It gives us soft shadows that we can work with, and it gives reflections in the eyes also, and this helps with lighting your subject out in the open, so to speak. So this works well. You can increase the angle by pulling this little blue arrow here, so that helps a lot. And yeah, that gives you that look in her face. You know, she looks surprised, she looks shocked, and having that softness in the shadows from the spotlight actually helps to convey that message of, hey, she looks, you know, kind of surprised, as opposed to our other scene where it was pretty much dark and that was more of a thriller kind of feel. And now we're going to go to the area lighting. So I'm going to go back to just plain shading in the viewport. I'm going to open up this other scene that I set up for this tutorial. I'm going to turn off exterior lighting and turn on interior lighting. And I'm going to go to 0. Did I press the right thing? Okay, 0 on my keyboard to go to camera view. And this scene is it's just an example that I got from offline of an interior. Let me delete that other light really quick, so I don't have anything slowing down our viewport. Delete. 0, go back to camera view. Now if we go into cycle shading again, it's just going to be dark because there's no lights at all in this scene, in this room. And that's one thing with Blender. You could have windows like we have here, but for some reason in Blender, the windows don't actually act like actual windows. They don't allow in lights. So in order to fix that, you'd have to actually get rid of those. Let me see. You would have to get rid of those windows completely, and just have holes. Let me zoom in here. Have holes here to let in light. But what we want to do with this is have our light source in this room, and what I've seen that works best out of all the lights, the sunlights, spotlights, point lights, area light, the area light is what works best. So we're going to click on our cursor gizmo and click there to place our cursor, because that's where we want our light to appear. And press Shift A, and we're going to go to area lights. Click on that, and we're going to make it bigger. Square looks good, but the size we're going to increase by hovering our mouse over this parameter. When it turns into a double arrow icon, just pull your mouse across, and we make it as big as we can to encompass most of the ceiling. We don't have to do the whole ceiling, but most of it. And we're going to click our move gizmo. I'm going to pull this down. We're going to go back into our camera view, and as you remember before, it was completely dark in this room, but with this area light, it's going to give us even lighting throughout the scene, and it's going to replicate or duplicate what would be, having, some kind of ceiling fan lights, or even sunlight coming from outside in. Because if you use a point light, it'll give you shadows, or point light, it won't light it up evenly, and it'll be hard and difficult to actually simulate an interior scene, interior lighted. My words getting kind of twisted. It's kind of late tonight, so I'm kind of tired. But when you use a point light, it won't give you that accurate lighting that you would need. You'd have to have a good number of them to actually light up the interior the way you'd want it to be. And with the sunlight, that would be a little bit too strong, and once again, harsh shadows. And with a spotlight, it would give you the right amount of shadows, but once again, you'd have to set up a whole lot of them inside of a room to give you the accurate lighting feel that you would want. But the area light does all that with just one light, and I'll show you how it looks. Let's go to the cycles render. And yeah, look at that. That has lit up the room. It's taken some time to process, but as it begins to clear up, you can see that it has really given us a good amount of light for the interior without us having to cut out any windows or to have multiple lights, because the more lights you have in any scene, obviously the longer it's going to take to render out that scene. But with this area light, we're just using one light. And if you don't have enough light going through your room, just increase the power. Okay, we're going to crank this up to 100. Enter. And hopefully, there we go. I thought I was going to try to crash Blender, but it's still going, which is a good thing. So as it clears up, and as the fireflies go away, and as it clears up, you can see that the interior is well lit, all over. So that's the best. That's how I've been able to use the different lights in Blender. You can combine different light systems. You can combine an area light with a spotlight in certain areas. Like if you would want maybe this lamp up here to put more light on the dining room area, you can put a spotlight in there and kind of reduce the power of the area light. But for myself, in terms of like rule of thumb, when you want to light an interior, use the area light. When you want to light an exterior, besides using the sunlight, also use a spotlight. Strategically place the spotlights on your models. And if you want to light up, cell phones, things of that nature, tablets, monitors inside of Blender, use a point light. So yeah, that's my Blender quick tip for today. And once again, this is for a user subscribe request from Filipe. And Filipe, I hope this tutorial helped you out, and I was glad to do it for you. And I'm glad to those of you who have subscribed to my videos and watched them. I really appreciate it. And those of you who have watched my videos and continue to watch them, I appreciate that also. And I know I'm kind of stumbling over my words because it's almost midnight and I'm pretty much just tired. But I will see you guys on the next one. All right, adios.